Dear learners, a very warm welcome in the MOOCs of Energy Resources and Conversion Process. I am Dr. Shweta Tripathi, Assistant Professor in Mechanical Engineering from School of Engineering and Technology, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Today in this module, we are going to discuss the other renewable energy sources, and particularly we are going to discuss hydrogen energy. The learning outcomes of this module is to know about the other renewable energy sources, to know the availability and the production of hydrogen energy, to understand and discuss the storage and transportation of hydrogen energy, to discuss the advantages and limitations of hydrogen energy, and to understand the animal power. As already discussed, that the need of the renewable energy is very much required this time, and we are searching for the alternative energy resources to replace the conventional energy sources. And in this regard, we had already discussed some of the important renewable energy sources like solar energy, solar thermal energy, solar photovoltaic energy, biogas energy, biomass energy, wind energy, hydropower, etc. There are some other renewable energy sources also which are not so popular but are now gaining importance. These other sources of renewable energy are mainly geothermal energy, ocean energy, hydrogen energy, and fuel cells. We will be discussing geothermal energy, ocean thermal energy, and fuel cells in other modules. In this particular module, we are going to focus the energy generated from hydrogen or hydrogen energy as a renewable energy source and the power of animal. These have immense potential, although tapping this potential for power generation and other application calls for development of suitable technologies. So the renewable energy sources that we are going to discuss under this other sources of renewable energy are in the developmental stage. They are not yet commercialized. So we will discuss what are their advantages and limitations, how we are going to produce them, how much we are going to produce them in their respective module. In this particular module, we are focusing mainly on hydrogen energy, and we will discuss a bit of animal power as well. Now comes the hydrogen energy. In the case of hydrogen energy, generally the electricity is produced through an electrochemical reaction between hydrogen and oxygen. And this gas is a primary fuel for fuel cells also. And the hydrogen can be produced from the electrolysis of water using solar energy. It can also be extracted from sewage gas, natural gas, naphtha or biogas. So here we will not be focusing on the fuel cells, we will just be focusing on the hydrogen energy. As we know that hydrogen as a gas is not found by itself on Earth. It is because it is so much lighter than air that it rises fast and is quickly ejected from the atmosphere. It is found only in compound form with other elements. We are familiar with one such compound, and what it is water, and it is the result of hydrogen combining with oxygen. Hydrogen when combined with carbon forms different compounds like methane, ethane, butane, etc. Coal, petroleum, they all are hydrocarbons, and hydrocarbons means hydrogen is combined with the carbon. Hydrogen is also available in the biomass. Now if we talk about the special feature of this hydrogen gas, what it is that hydrogen has the highest energy content of any common fuel by weight. If we talk about by weight, the hydrogen is about 3 times more than gasoline. Energy content of hydrogen by weight is about 3 times more than gasoline. And if we talk about the energy content by volume, hydrogen has the lowest energy content by volume, and it is about 4 times less than that of petrol. So if we talk about the hydrogen content in per kg terms or by weight, it is 3 times more than gasoline. And if we talk about the hydrogen content per unit volume, that is per meter cube, then it is about 4 times less than gasoline. This is a very special feature of the hydrogen. Now we know that hydrogen has highest energy content per unit of mass or weight of any chemical fuel, and therefore it can be substituted hydrocarbon in a broad range of application. Its burning process is non-polluting. Why? Because hydrogen didn't contain any carbon atom, any nitrogen, any sulfur. So the burning process is non-polluting. It is very clean. The heating value of 28,000 kilocalorie per kg, which is 3 times greater than that of the hydrocarbon. It is easy in production because it is produced from water which is found in abundance. It is highly flammable. Hydrogen at ordinary pressure and temperature is a light gas with a density only 1/14 that of air and 1/9 that of natural gas under the same condition. By cooling to extremely low temperature of -253 degrees centigrade, the gas is condensed to a liquid with a specific gravity of 0.07, roughly 1/10 of gasoline. If we talk about the flame speed of hydrogen burning in air, it is much greater than that for the natural gas, and the energy required to initiate this combustion is less. So to initiate the combustion in case of hydrogen gas, we need less amount of energy rather than natural gases. Mixture of hydrogen and air are combustible over an exceptionally wide range of compositions. Thus, the flammability limits at ordinary temperature extends from 4 to 74% by volume of hydrogen in air. So whenever we are talking about the energy content, calorific value or anything about the hydrogen, we have to mention clearly that if we are talking about by weight or by volume, per unit weight or per unit volume, because it is entirely different. Then comes the hydrogen production. On the basis of source use and energy source, hydrogen production are of many types, like electrolysis or electrolytic production. And we know that in electrolysis, water is split into hydrogen and oxygen, and when electric current passes through in this process, 2 types of electrolyzers are generally used. One is tank type electrolyzer, another is bipolar or filter press electrolyzer. We generally use bipolar or filter press electrolyzer more. And another method is thermochemical method. And the some of the thermochemical processes are Westinghouse electrochemical, thermal sulfur cycles, Spramark 13 cycles, and iodine sulfur cycle. Another method of production of hydrogen is from the fossil fuel, that is fossil fuel method. And one more method is from the solar energy method, and these are of 2 types, biophotolysis method or photoelectrolysis method. If we talk about the electrolysis, the process of splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen by means of a direct electric current is known as electrolysis. This is the simplest method of hydrogen production, and although only water is split, an electrolyte, generally potassium hydroxide, is required because water itself is a very poor conductor of electricity. Theoretically, 1.23 volts are required for this process, but in real situation, due to the slowness of the electrode processes, higher voltages are required for the electrolysis. Theoretically, 2.8 kilowatt-hour of electrical energy should produce from 1 cubic meter of hydrogen. However, the actual electrical energy requirement is generally from 3.9 to 4.6 kilowatt-hour per cubic meter. This means the efficiency of electrolysis is roughly 60 to 70%. To increase the efficiency of the electrode, surface must be able to catalyze the electrode process. Platinum and nickel are normally deposited on the electrode. Diaphragms prevent electronic contact between adjacent electrodes and passage of dissolved gas or gas bubble from one electrode compartment to another without appreciable resistance to the passage of current within the electrolyte. Asbestos is the most suitable material for self-diaphragms. The three major factors which determine the usefulness of an electrochemical cell for hydrogen production are energy efficiency, capital cost of the plant, and lifetime of the cell and its maintenance requirements. A number of advantages can be gained from operating electrolyzer at higher pressure, and these are reduction in specific power consumption, delivery of gas at pressure, thus eliminating the cost of gas compression, and the reduction of size of electrolysis cells. Two types of electrode arrangements are used by industry for the electrolysis of water. On the basis they are classified as tank type electrolyzer and filter press or bipolar electrolyzer. It is generally desirable to circulate electrolyte through the cell, thereby separating the gas and the electrolyte, and in many designs this is accomplished in a separating drum mounted on the top of the electrolyzer. The filter press electrolyzer is generally preferred because it occupies less space and can be operated at higher current densities than the other tank type, that is tank type. The economics are thus more favorable since a large production is possible in the plant. The filter press electrolyzers require a much closer tolerance in construction and are more difficult to maintain also. Breakdowns in the system are rare, but when they occur, it is difficult and repair and may take considerable time. As we were talking about the asbestos diaphragm, if an individual asbestos diaphragm is damaged, the entire battery must be dismantled. High cell voltage imply high energy cost, and low current densities imply that the electrolyzers give small yields per unit time, leading to relatively high capital cost. For these reasons, hydrogen produced electrolytically is at present twice as expensive as hydrogen produced from fossil fuels. Now let us discuss the conversion of this primary energy, whether in form of fossil fuel or nuclear fuels, into hydrogen. The overall efficiency for the conversion of primary energy from fossil and nuclear fuels into hydrogen by electrolysis is dependent. in the first place on the efficiency of the generating electricity. This efficiency is generally 38% for modern fossil fuel plants and 32% for the nuclear installations. The higher conversion efficiency might be possible if the heat produced by the primary fuel could be used directly to decompose water without the intermediate electric energy. Such direct decomposition into hydrogen and oxygen is possible, but it requires a temperature of at least 2500 degrees centigrade. But due to temperature limitation and conversion process equipment, direct single-step water decomposition is not possible. However, a sequential chemical reaction series can be devised in which hydrogen and oxygen are produced. Water is consumed and all other intermediates are recycled, and this operation is known as thermochemical cycle. It is so called because energy is supplied as heat, and heat is thermo. It is supplied as heat at one or more of the chemical stages, and hydrogen and oxygen are produced separately in different stages. So the production of hydrogen and oxygen is a chemical cycle, and it is done because of the heat. Therefore, it is called a thermochemical cycle. For practical reasons, primarily the availability, structural and containment materials, the maximum temperature considered to be about 950 degrees centigrade. Then comes the thermal decomposition. As we know that the heat energy can be converted into hydrogen energy with efficiency of about 50%, and this is a marked improvement over what is possible by electrolysis. At present, no commercial process for thermal splitting of water or thermal decomposition of water to hydrogen and oxygen is in operation. But several workers have proposed many multi-step reaction sequence that thermally decomposes water at lower temperatures. And what are these? This is Westinghouse electrochemical thermal sulfur cycle, Sprague 13 bromine sulfur cycle, iodine sulfur cycle, etc. Overall process decomposes water. All these process, what they do, they decomposes water into hydrogen and oxygen and involves only sulfur oxide as a recycling intermediate. Although electrical power is required in the electrolyzer in much smaller quantities than those necessary for conventional electrolysis. Now the production from fossil fuels. Mostly a gaseous mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen is formed in the first stage during the production of hydrogen by using a fossil fuel. This is a popular method of hydrogen production through which about 94% of hydrogen is produced, and the processes used are the steam reforming of gas. First steam reforming is there, then partial oxidation of heavier hydrocarbon is there, then coal gasification is there, then pyrolysis is there. Biomass gasification is also there. And last, to remove the carbon monoxide, the mixture is submitted to the water gas shift reaction with steam. The carbon monoxide is therefore converted into carbon dioxide with the formation of additional hydrogen and energy. And the reaction is carbon monoxide plus water, that is water gas shift reaction for converting carbon monoxide into hydrogen. CO plus H2O gives CO2 plus hydrogen. CO2 thus produced is sequestered or stored or absorbed somewhere, and hydrogen is there. And this apart from this hydrogen, we get for 1440 kilojoule per kg of energy as well. The other methods of hydrogen production are by the iron process. In this, various oxides react with water and it gives hydrogen. Steam gasification process is there. Gas generators for present day industrial coal gasification process is there. We had already told that hydrogen production from solar energy is there, and there are two methods for hydrogen production from solar energy. One is biophotolysis and another is photoelectrolysis. Electrolysis is a more attractive way of producing hydrogen and solar radiation since it can be operated intermittently and therefore needs no storage. The solar electricity needed for electrolysis can be produced either photoelectrically or thermoelectrically. Both technologies are available today. Now comes the storage of the hydrogen. This is also a challenge. We need to store the hydrogen because almost inevitable mismatch between the optimum production rate of energy and the fluctuation in demand for energy by the users. In the electric energy system storage, presently considerable difficulty is there because electricity itself is not readily storable. So one of the advantages often claimed for a hydrogen energy system is that hydrogen is storable. However, it must be realized that storage of hydrogen is not an easy task. Compared with the storage of liquid fuels such as gasoline or oil. It is only when it is compared with electricity that storage of energy as hydrogen seems relatively easy. There are basically 5 principal methods of hydrogen storage. First is compressed gas storage. Then in liquid form we store it as liquid storage, or we call it as cryogenic storage. Then line pack system, underground storage, and storage as a metal hydride. The storage can be effected in a gaseous or liquid state or in the structure of solids according to the field application. It is necessary to distinguish between storage on a large scale and on a small scale also. The storage on large scale applies particularly to stationary application, and the latter, that is the small scale, is also for the mobile use. If we talk about the compressed gas storage, hydrogen is stored in high pressure cylinders. This method of storage is rather expensive and very bulky because very large quantity of steel is needed to contain quite small amounts of hydrogen. Then comes the liquid storage or cryogenic storage. This is a more practical approach to store the hydrogen as liquid at a low temperature. Generally, this liquid hydrogen boils at -253 degrees centigrade and therefore must be maintained at or below this temperature in storage. It is commonly regarded as necessary to use vacuum insulated storage vessels and super insulated vessels. A problem concerning storage of liquid hydrogen is the considerable amount of energy required to convert hydrogen gas into the liquid phase. To maintain the temperature at such a low limit, some kind of primary refrigeration such as liquid nitrogen plant to pre-cool hydrogen, the net result is that about 25 to 30% of the heating value of hydrogen is required to liquefy hydrogen. Then comes the line packing. The use of line pack storage in the natural gas industry provides a relatively small capacity storage system, but one with a very fast response time that can take care of minute by minute or hour by hour variations in demand. A hydrogen transmission and distribution system running on hydrogen would have a similar capability. Then comes the underground storage. It is the cheapest way to store large amounts of hydrogen for subsequent distribution, and it would be possible only in the underground facilities similar to those used for natural gas. These facilities would include depleted oil and gas reservoirs. More expensive alternatives would be caverns produced by conventional mining or by dissolving out salt with water. Since hydrogen gas tends to escape readily through a porous material, some geologic formation that may be suitable for storing natural gas may not be suitable for hydrogen. Then comes the storage in chemically bound form, that is metal hydrides. Considerable interest has been shown recently in the possibility of storage of hydrogen in the form of a metal hydride. A number of metals and alloys form solid compounds called metal hydrides by direct reaction with hydrogen gas. When the hydride is heated, the hydrogen is released and the original metal or alloy is recovered for further use. Thus, metal hydrides provide a possible means for hydrogen storage. An important property of metal hydrides is that the pressure of the gas released by heating a particular hydride depends mainly on the temperature and not the composition. Then comes the pipelines. Presently, only few companies are capable to transport hydrogen by pipelines at different locations. It is of interest to compare the design of a pipeline for hydrogen with those of a pipeline for natural gas. The heating value of hydrogen is only 12.1 megajoule per cubic meter as compared to natural gas having the value of 38.3 megajoule per cubic meter. That is heating value of hydrogen by volume. This implies that to deliver the same quantity of energy, 3 times the quantity of hydrogen must be transmitted. On the other side, one finds that the capacity of the pipeline depends upon the square root of the density of the gas. As the density of the hydrogen is 1 by 9 times that of natural gas, so that it indicates that the energy content of hydrogen is same as that of natural gas for the same size of pipe. As we know that if we want to supply hydrogen to long distance, then we have to do same with the help of compressor stations. As the hydrogen compressors have to handle 3 to 4 times the volume of gas, large compressors are required and they consume more power also. The design of rotary compressors commonly used for natural gas lines appears to be more inadequate for hydrogen operation. In the case of design of a pipeline of hydrogen transmission, the cost of fuel used to drive the engines for compressor is also the highly deciding factor, because the compression energy is so much higher than that of the natural gas. One of the principal concerns about hydrogen transmission is the fear of hydrogen embrittlement of the pipeline material as well. A number of metals loses their mechanical strength on exposure to hydrogen, and the phenomena is called hydrogen embrittlement. It is especially significant for steel in hydrogen under pressure. Operating experience with common pipeline, steels at pressure up to 3.5 megapascal and has shown no problems of consequence. However, the behavior at higher pressure is uncertain and more experimental work needs to be carried out to get some definite idea about this. Then comes the hydrogen transportation in a liquid form. Hydrogen in bulk can be transported and distributed as the liquid. Double-wall insulated tanks of liquid hydrogen with capacities of 7,000 gallons or more are carried by road vehicles and up to 34,000 gallons by railroad cars. Distribution of liquid hydrogen by pipeline jacketed with liquid nitrogen has been proposed as well. The cost would be substantially greater than for the gas pipeline, but it might be justifiable for certain fuel applications where the liquid is required. Then the metal hydride transportation. Hydrogen is transportation in the form of solid metal hydrides. The main drawback with this kind of transportation is the weight of the hydride relative to its hydrogen content. Then we know that the hydrogen is also an energy carrier. How hydrogen is as energy carrier? As we have seen that electricity is the most well-known energy carrier. Like electricity, hydrogen is an energy carrier and must be produced from another substance. Hydrogen is not currently widely used, but it has tremendous potential as an energy carrier in the future. It can be separated from water, biomass or natural gas biomolecules. One of the we have already discussed the methods for producing hydrogen, and we had discussed that electrolysis is a process that splits hydrogen from water and it generally results in zero emission, but it is an expensive process at present. Hydrogen fuel cells batteries are also being used as a source of electricity. They are very efficient but expensive to build. Small fuel cells can power electric cars, while large fuel cells can provide electricity in remote areas where there is no power. We will discuss this fuel cell in our next module. Now the applications of hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas can be utilized in the following ways, that is residential uses, industrial uses, as an alternative transport fuel, as an alternative fuel for aircraft and for electric power generation also. For residential uses, electricity for lighting and for operating domestic appliances could be generated by fuel cell in which hydrogen is used as a fuel. Hydrogen can be used in domestic cooking with the help of changing in the design of the burner, including the hole size and air supply system. It can be useful in gradient space heaters because of the possibility of flameless combustion on a catalytic surface. These devices could operate spontaneously when the gas was turned on and no pilot light or other ignition system would be required. Because of the low combustion temperature, nitrogen oxide formation would be negligible and venting would be unnecessary. Then comes the industrial use. Many potential industry uses hydrogen either as a fuel or a chemical reducing agent, that is a removal of oxygen, if the economics were favorable. Hydrogen gas could be used with advantage instead of coal or coal-derived gases to reduce oxide ores, iron ore to the metal iron. Then comes the transportation sector. The use of hydrogen as a fuel in transportation sector has attracted interest of many of the researchers who are working for the conserving petroleum products. In internal combustion engines, generally the atmospheric pollution is more and the conservation of petroleum products is also required. So the hydrogen found a place here. Hydrogen acts as an alternative fuel for the internal combustion engines. Because of the fuel as a gas, the conventional carburetor of a spark ignition engine must be modified for use with hydrogen. The hydrogen gas under pressure is injected through a valve directly into the engine cylinder, and the air is admitted through the another intake valve. Since they both supplied separately, an explosive mixture does not occur except in the cylinder. The engine power output is controlled by varying the pressure of hydrogen gas. The hydrogen is required to be stored as a compressed gas. Another modification arises from the high speed of the hydrogen flame in the air. This requires that ignition time may be retarded compared to a gasoline engine. They can utilize a higher proportion of the energy in the fuel than gasoline engine. The amount of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons in the exhaust would be very small, since they would originate only from the cylinder lubricating oil. However, the nitrogen oxides level due to high combustion temperatures may be high, that is, NOx emission will be higher, but it may be reduced by reducing the combustion temperature by injecting water vapor into cylinder from the exhaust. The other way to utilize hydrogen as a fuel is the use of fuel cells. Electricity generated by the fuel cells could be utilized to operate electric motors to propel the vehicles. For vehicles, the storage of hydrogen can be as compressed gas, liquid, and metal hydrides. Then comes the application of hydrogen in aircraft. The earliest application of liquid hydrogen fuel is expected to be in a jet aircraft. This possibly was demonstrated in a subsonic aircraft in 1957. The main advantage is the much lower overall weight of the fuel and the storage tank than for ordinary jet fuel. The volume of liquid hydrogen would be greater than regular jet fuel, but this could be accommodated on the large aircraft. The cool liquid hydrogen could be used directly or indirectly to cool the engine and the airframe surfaces of a high-speed aircraft. If the hypersonic aircraft is developed, the liquid hydrogen may be the only practical fuel. Because of the smaller total weight, it is possible to achieve shorter takeoff runs, steeper climbing paths, and smaller engine thrust. It may also be possible to decrease the size and weight of the engines. Hydrogen's favorable diffusion properties and high thermal conductivity lead to better mixing even with shorter combustion time. The wide range of ignition for hydrogen air mixture, 5 to 75% by volume, makes the engine more readily controllable, especially under partial loads, and reduces the emission of noxious substances. The heat required to vaporize and heat up the hydrogen for the engines can be obtained through the certain sections of the outer skin of the wings. In this way, the boundary layer is cooled so as to produce laminar flow, resulting in a lowering of the aerodynamic drag and hence to the fuel consumption. This could not be achieved to the same extent in any other way. Then comes the electric power generation. It is unlikely that hydrogen would serve as a major fuel for electrical power generation by a utility. However, its substitution for natural gas in peak hours is possible. Hydrogen could be used as a means for storing and distributing electrical energy. This also comprises the production of electricity by using hydrogen in fuel cell systems. It is also important that the conversion efficiency of the fuel cells is independent of the load factor over a wide range, so that a high efficiency can be obtained even with partial loads. Then comes the advantages of the hydrogen. As we know that it is non-explosive in open air, it is non-decomposing, it is non-self-igniting, it does not oxidize, it is non-toxic, it is non-corrosive, it is non-polluting, and it is non-carcinogenic also. But the limitations with the hydrogen is currently it is more expensive, and the other one is it is more difficult to store and transport or distribute the hydrogen. Then comes the animal power. As we know that since the ages of Mesopotamia, that is before 3000 BC, the domesticated animals for farm were used for farm work and for pulling wheeled vehicles, and they are doing it till now. They are used for drawing heavy loads. Their use spread for the rest of the world over the following 2500 years. These cattle are usually in teams, have been used most often as draft animals. Horses, donkeys have supplemented them in many areas. Some horses such as Belgian horse, the Suffolk, the Shire and the Percheron have been bred to serve as draft animals. They weigh more than 725 kg and stand at least 16 hands high. Asian water buffalo were also used as a draft animals, and 165 million domesticated water buffalo worldwide are used as draft animals, particularly in tropical Asia, where they help in the production of rice. The role of draft animals in agriculture in less developed regions of the world continues because of the advantage they offer. That is, their feed is easily grown and commonly available. Little maintenance of the animal is required. Their manure is also a valuable resource for the farmer, and the animal itself may become a source of food or other products at the end of its useful life. Generally, this draft animal is used for its physical or muscular power, as in transport and haulage, such as pulling carts or sleds, flying fields and hauling goods. So here we get power or energy from the animal, and we use them, and we generally use the animal power transport, that is bullock cart, tanga, etc. They are used for the movement of people and goods. People ride some animals directly as mounts, and we call them as pack animals to carry goods, or harness one or a team to pull vehicles. Such animals are sometimes known as beasts of burden. These often belong to the same species, and mounts or harness, that is pack animals, are also belong to the same species, though animals such as horses, mules, donkeys or the Arabian camel may be of specialized breeding for packing. Other species are only used to carry loads, including llamas in the Andes and the Bactrian camel in Central Asia. Oxen, bullocks and yaks are others which are used generally. Other species include dog, reindeer and goats. Animal power is also used to drive machines and devices and for plying, especially oxen. So, when we use them for the driving machines or devices, we are converting this animal power into derive the energy to drive the machines. So these animal powers could also be used as a renewable energy sources to drive machines and devices. And if they are used to drive machine and devices, we could use them efficiently for the production of energy, high-grade energy as well. Elephants are still used for logging in Southeast Asia. Water buffalo in tropical or very wet subtropical areas help in rice growing. So generally these animals are used for different purposes. They are naturally equipped to catch prey. There are certain breeds that have been bred for this task, and ferret preys on creatures living in burrows such as rabbits and hares. Dogs with their highly developed sense of smell are used to catch human prey. So beside this animal power, we are using these animals for various purposes, and we are utilize animal power for making for our own use and for the production of power. Now let us summarize whatever we have discussed today. We have discussed that in spite these solar thermal energy, solar photovoltaic, biomass, biogas and hydropower, we have some other renewable energy sources which have potential to be developed as a renewable energy source. And in this regard, we have discussed hydrogen energy. We have discussed the production of hydrogen energy through electrolysis. We have discussed the storage of hydrogen as a cryogenic liquid, as metal hydride, and the transportation of liquid in transportation of hydrogen as a gas, as metal hydride and as liquid. We have discussed the advantages and limitations of the hydrogen energy. We have discussed the various applications of the hydrogen energy, and we have discussed that the hydrogen has the highest energy content of any common fuel by weight, but the lowest energy content by volume. And we have discussed the animal power as well. Thank you very much.